Love music. Live sport. Talking football with Bill Young and Gerry Collins on RockSport Radio.
Okay, talking football for this Tuesday. Gerry Collins, my guest in the studio tonight. Let me just bring you up to speed with how you can listen to us and how you can view the programme. If you want to watch the live video stream, you can do. That's on Facebook and Twitter. You can listen on DAB, digital radio, across central Scotland. You can listen via the website at rocksportradio.co.uk, and you can listen using the TuneIn and Radiogram apps on your smartphone. If you want to get in touch with the programme, 0333 9442 is a telephone number, or you can do what you normally do and you can batter us with your views on Twitter at RockSport DAB. How are you?
I'm fine, Bill. Thank you very much.
Lots to talk about. A brand new season, and it's been a busy one so far. We had the Morelos sending off at the weekend, which we discussed yesterday with Hugh and Murdo. We've got an offer from Fulham for Diedrich Boyata. We've got the boy from Aussie X signing for Rangers. We've got John McGinn down in Birmingham at Villa Park. And we had Glasgow City, the ladies of Glasgow City, in the Champions League action. We'll talk about all of them tonight. Is there anything from the weekend you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about your boy?
No, I was pleasantly surprised. I was at Parkhead on Saturday, and a friend of mine who does a bit of scouting for a team in England nudged me beside me and said to me, "Your boy Shanklin scored 2 already." I thought, oh my God. But here's the thing, Bill, that Steven Gerrard's recruiting players, and he's got a thing that maybe, if you've got to believe it, you're reading the papers, that he wants Kyle Lafferty. I do not understand that the family, the Shanklin family, Rangers mind it. Not that makes any difference, but he wants to go to Rangers. He's 22 years of age. Surely Rangers must go and buy that boy. They must go and buy him.
Can I ask you a question? If you're going to buy him, if you're going to buy Lawrence Shanklin, right, would you still chase Lafferty as well?
No, I wouldn't. No, why would you want Lafferty?
Well, no, there's a reason I'm asking you.
Right, okay.
So, bearing in mind that Lafferty's got the experience,
yes.
Bear in mind he's played for Rangers, so he knows what wearing the jersey entails, and bearing in mind that young Shanklin, and he was younger, didn't cut the mustard at Aberdeen, would there be a degree of reticence in your mind, if you were Steven Gerrard, to go and buy someone that you thought, what I can't be assured of is that he doesn't find this jersey too big or too heavy to wear?
I think you can only buy players. If you look at players, Steven Gerrard, he must have been impressed with the left back. Is it Barisic?
Barisic, yeah.
Right, okay. He must have been impressed over 2 games. Now, nobody's going to tell me that they had him monitored. He impressed over 2 games, and they bought him for what we believe is £2 million. Mm-hmm. Lawrence Shanklin is in the Scottish scene. Okay, he never cut the mustard at Aberdeen. He's been away in loan elsewhere. The boy's grew up. He's only 22 years of age.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you.
No, I'm just saying he's 22 years of age. He's got everything in front of him, and he started the season in fire. He's a Player of the Year last year, which tells me that there's
a consistency there.
Something's clicked in there, and we spoke about it last week, Bill. Something's clicked with Lawrence Shanklin that if you don't get your finger out, son, you could be left behind.
Yeah.
That boy's started the season tremendous. And I say again, he's a Rangers-minded person. How would Rangers not go and invest 150 or 200 grand on that boy at 22 years of age?
Would you if you were Steven Gerrard?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. The thing is, well, Bill, you talk about when Rangers went out of the league, they brought these players in and paid them big wages in the 3rd division. And I didn't see the point. I thought what they should have done at the time, as did a lot of Rangers fans, was go and recruit the best in the 1st division and go and at less cost and still climb the leagues and get back to the Premier League and then have your big push in the Premier League. Guys like Lawrence Shanklin, I think, it's a no-brainer.
All right, let me ask you another thing, because this is something that I'm interested in, Gerry. How big do you think the difference between the Premier League and the Championship is? Bearing in mind that Shanklin was League One Player of the Year last season, he's moved up a division. It doesn't seem to have phased him. Is it too much of a leap too quickly going from League One straight into the Premiership? And how big a leap do you think it actually is when you look at the standard of play in the Championship against the Premiership?
Well, I was at Parkhead on Saturday. Livingston, who've just come up, never gave in. Celtic had probably 90% of the ball right enough. They were defending for long periods. Celtic missed 2 or 3 chances, could have put the game beyond doubt. They didn't. Livingston come back and scored a goal, but they kept digging in, Bill. They kept just playing their game and digging in, and they got a wee passage of play where the 2 or 3 passes in and they get the goal that their work rate probably deserved, because they worked really hard. But the difference for Livingston and Celtic is day and night. Now, the difference between Livingston and Ayr, I'm almost sure it would be day and night.
It's an interesting one. As you say, something's obviously clicked with the boy. Yep. You're right also about the fact being Player of the Year last season in League One, getting to where 9 goals now in the beginning of this season in the Championship, albeit that some of the games have been in the Betfred. You're right, there's a consistency there, there's a pattern there, and you know better than me, Jerry. You've dealt with them for many a year and you've played up against them for many a year. One of the things that breeds success with any striker is confidence, and when they're scoring goals, their confidence is sky high.
I said to you last week that I was impressed by him because I played football with his grandfather in 1980, 1981.
You did?
So it caught my eye, and I thought, and I checked up on him. Okay, he left Aberdeen, didn't hack it, but I tell you what, he's grabbed the bull by the horns. Bill, he's now a different player, and I stand by what I said to you last week, that I don't think he'll be an Ayr player by the end of the season, because I think...
Do you think he'll be an Ayr player by the end of next week?
Well, he was the best man in the park. Bearing in mind his team came from the division below, and the team that they played to came out of the Premier League. He was the best man, head and shoulders above everybody in the park. He's done it again on Saturday, scored another 2 goals. So he's one. I just think that teams like Rangers or Aberdeen, maybe not so much Aberdeen, but sometimes you can leave a club and you maybe mature a wee bit and they'll go back in and take you. A Hibs or a something like that should be going and taking this boy. I think the boy will play Premier League football there, before the season's out.
I think you're probably right. But again, it's an interesting one as to why Rangers haven't looked. If they don't and he goes on and he plays for somebody else, who knows who it might be in the Premier League, and he comes back to haunt them, well, they look back at it, because Hughie Burns says there's a game he remembers sticks out like a sore thumb when Andy Robertson was playing for Queen's Park and they played Rangers, and he said to somebody at the club, you need to go and sign that boy, and they never. And look at Andy Robertson now. Well,
fun enough, I worked with Brighton at the time, and I went to watch Andy Robertson at Hampden. Queen's Park were playing Berwick, and Queen's Park under Gus were playing 4-4-2, and Andy Robertson played left back, and you could see, watching the game, you could see he wasn't a left back. He couldn't. Every time he got the ball, the guy that played in front of him, it was like 2 guys in one position, as if Gus had changed it to a 3-5-2, Andy Robertson would have run that line all day. But the fact is that Hull were watching him, and Hull played at the time 3-5-2, and whoever was watching for Hull thought, that guy's a wing back, he's not a left back, because he's better going forward than he's defending. So I was asked, would you sign the boy as a left back? And I said no, I wouldn't. But Watford and Brighton at the time played 4-4-2, so they would go and sign him and play 3-5-2.
Well, we spoke last week about Barisic and how Steven Gerrard should be taking a look at him, because he felt he was good enough, and the reason I knew he felt he was good enough was because for a large part of the training week they were making the guys shape up to deal with the balls he was flying in from the left hand side. So he obviously saw him as a main threat and thought he was good enough for that. So it was a no-brainer really from to look at it. I get your point about the research. Do you not think sometimes, and I know £2 million for Rangers is a lot of money these days, but do you not think sometimes when you see a player like you must have seen a player that you've spotted and thought, he's a player?
Bill, you'll get players like that, but I just think in the current situation that Rangers are in, that they've squandered a lot of money over the years through different managers. I'm not saying Steven Gerrard's done that, but what I'm saying is that we used to do a thing called progressive analysis, where you find out the player, how many minutes he's played, you find out how many forward passes, you find out injuries, you check everything. For me, Steven Gerrard's dived in and signed a player for £2 million who did well against Rangers that would worry me. That would worry me. Spending... It's not a lot of money, but it's a lot of money to Rangers, £2 million.
I'm just wondering if the boy Katic, who's a Croat, had known of him or something to kind of be able to reference the manager with. I don't know.
Well, sorry, just to finish on that note, he's not been capped for Croatia. He made the 32 squad, but didn't make the squad that got to the World Cup. So
okay, we'll come back to Barisic obviously a wee bit later on, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Diedrich Boyata and the fact that Celtic have turned down an offer for him, and we'll talk about John McGinn, who's been in Birmingham today visiting the training ground of Aston Villa to see how that all works. But first, let's go to Champions League football. Sadly, it's not a positive that I have to report. When we talk about football, we're big supporters of women's football, and Glasgow City, who are probably our most successful female football team, were in action today against Anderlecht. 2-1 they were defeated playing through at the Oriam. Let's speak to Hayley Lauder of Glasgow City. Hayley, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm just wondering, how big a blow this is. I mean, it leaves you with a wee bit of an uphill battle, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is a blow. Obviously, it's the first game as well in the mini tournament, and you always want to get off to a good start. But we obviously have 2 more games to play, as do all the other teams. So it is definitely still all to play for. Just a little bit tougher for us now.
Who have you got to play? Who's left to play, Hayley?
So we play the Georgian champions FC Martiv on Friday, and then we play the Polish champions Górnik Leszno on Monday.
Both fairly formidable, you would expect.
Yeah, I think the Georgian team are the lowest seed, so and then obviously the Polish team are the top seed, so it's going to be very tough.
Where are Anderlecht in women's football generally? And I know a lot of the continental countries put more money and more commitment into the women's game than we probably do or have done, certainly in Scotland. Where do they sit in terms of quality within the European women's game?
Yeah, they are up there. Obviously, they're not up with the best, but they are tied in well with the men's team. I think they have a lot of funding. And like today, they had a lot of Belgian national team players playing for them, so they're obviously got a lot of resources within the club that they can attract these sort of players. So yeah, they're a good side.
Hayley, Gerry Collins here. Hayley, were you expected to beat Anderlecht today?
Yes, I would say so. Like definitely within ourselves, we believed that we had the team to go out and do that, and we do have internationals and. It was a disappointing performance from us, I must say that, and we just need to pick ourselves up and go again on Friday.
When you look at the performance and you say it was a disappointing performance, we talk about players at all levels of the game playing in the big games and saying if you can't get yourself up for games like this, then there's something wrong. What went wrong today in terms, was the heads wrong? Was it the fact that maybe you just didn't play in the right formation? Where do you think it went wrong today? Because if you've got that belief and that thought in your heads, and I know you've got to have it for every game, Hayley, but if you were that confident that you had it within you to win today, where did it kind of fall apart a wee bit?
I think we just kind of got lured into how they wanted us to play a bit. They were a big physical side. They played the long ball, played for Flick Collins and runs through, and I think we just got sucked into that a wee bit and started playing that style ourselves, which didn't suit us. And then before you know it, you're a goal down and after dominating the opening stages. So, yeah, it was just overall a bit disappointing for us.
Gerry, you've been in management for a long, long time. I mean, it's easy done, isn't it? When you start to play a team that play a certain way, you find yourself, it's kind of action against reaction.
I think it must be hard for Scott Booth to... Does Scott Booth scout the opposition in pre-match before games?
Yes.
You do?
It's hard to get footage of teams because obviously it's not widely reported within the media and things like that, and obviously like Georgian teams, it's hard to go and scout there. But yeah, he does a lot of work, and as well as our assistant coach David, and yeah, like we did a lot of analysis on them, so we knew how they would play, but it's different watching on the video than it is actually being involved in the game.
So you said, Hayley, that you were poor on the day. Were they better?
Yeah.
Obviously they're better, they won the game, but do they normally play at that kind of standard, or did they raise their game against you?
That's hard to say. I mean, I don't watch them week in, week out, so I don't really know the standard of their league as such and what opposition, but I think they're good at what they do. They definitely play to their strengths, and today they did that. And they obviously got one over on us.
Your next games, are they home or away?
So we're actually hosting the tournament.
Oh, right, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so one team hosts, so it's us this year, and it's at Orium in Edinburgh, so we're hosting all the games here.
Let me ask you about the pressure on Glasgow City. As I said, for many years you've been our most successful female team, with great success, and you've done well in Europe in previous seasons, and represented Scotland certainly, very, very strongly. Do you find it pressure now? Is the expectation, how do you manage expectation now from fans and from within the club and things like that, bearing in mind that other teams are getting stronger, getting better, giving better financial commitment possibly to their women's side of the game?
Yeah, I think that was always going to happen at some point, that teams like men's teams started backing their women's teams, and more money comes into the game, therefore they become better, stronger clubs. But as for the expectations, it's something you just have to deal with in elite sport, and yeah, I think we've handled ourselves very well over the years, and hopefully we'll continue to do that.
All right, let me give you a really pointed question. Over the years, Glasgow City, because they have been a female team, a women's team, and not had to rely on a men's team or a club related to a men's team to carry them along, you've obviously been very successful with the model that you've done and that you've used. Can I ask you now, if looking at it with clubs that have got strong men's teams getting behind the women's game, whether that is still an advantage to Glasgow City or now becoming more of a handicap?
Well, obviously, as you said, previously it was an advantage because they were the leaders of women's football in Scotland, but I mean, inevitably, if men's teams want to put money in, you can't compete with that. So, and I think the message is for men's teams to get involved. It'll only create a better league and better opportunities for girls to play football in Scotland. So, yeah.
Well, it's going to be interesting. How confident or how easy is it going to be for you to pick yourselves up and get ready for these games? I know that you've got to, and I know that it's a big ask. Is it going to be a help as well, the fact that you're hosting the tournament, so you're feeling comfortable at home?
Yeah, definitely. I think that always helps. You don't have the travel factor, being in a foreign country, things like that, and that definitely helps. But it's easy to pick yourself up for these sort of games. It's only the top team goes through, so it's do or die really. So we just need to get on with it.
Well,
Hayley, have you ever had the opportunity of going abroad to play?
Yeah, I played in Finland for 1 year, and I played in Sweden for 2.
Enjoy it?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved my time out there. It's culturally a lot different. It's a big thing out in Scandinavia, women's football, so it was nice to experience it.
So are they more serious in women's football than Scotland?
Yes, definitely,
right.
100%.
Does that mean that we are now likely in the future to lose our best players abroad?
Yeah, I think we've seen that already. The likes of Erin Cuthbert, he went from Glasgow City down to Chelsea. There's players now going to Man United. There's players going to Sweden, Germany. Like, you can't compete with players wanting to go and make a profession out of the sport and play in the top leagues in Europe. You can't compete with that. So that's always a struggle for the top teams in Scotland, losing players.
Some things in football, Gerry, never change.
Never change.
Hayley, listen, good luck for the remaining 2 games, and maybe we can talk to you again at the end of everything, especially if you're going through. Thanks for being on with us tonight.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks again. There we go. Hayley Lauder of Glasgow City talking to us about that match they had against Anderlecht this afternoon. Defeated 2-1, but still with a chance to go through. We spoke about the women's game. It's not something that you've partaken the pleasure of.
I'm embarrassed to say I haven't. No, I haven't been to a women's game. No.
It is really a very, very different game, but very, very good. And I know a lot of guys listening to the show come on and they say, why are you talking about the girls' game? Why are you talking about the women's game? Listen, let me tell you, as they go and as they develop, the women's game will make a very valuable contribution to Scottish football, trust me.
Well, my pal was a player in Scotland and a manager in Scotland, and his daughter was a better player than him. And she had a great career.
Have you told them that?
Well, he knows that as well. Julie Fleeton.
Oh, hi, Julie.
Julie, yeah, big Jimmy's fan.
Yeah, we have Julie on regularly to talk to us.
Well, Jim tells you that Julie was a better player than him. It was a pity he didn't sign her for Kilmarnock. He said, had he been able to sign her, he would have signed her for Kilmarnock.
Well, let's think about men's football again. And we were talking at the top of the programme about the action that we've had in the transfer market, and Celtic have had to make a decision about Diedrich Boyata today in terms of his being the focus of Fulham. And we're hoping to talk to Jack Collins, who's from the Fulhamish podcast, in the next minute or so, just to get an idea of how serious Fulham are. We know that one bid's been rejected. I'm just wondering if they'll come in with another one. Brendan Rodgers saying it is not the right time today at a press conference to get rid of Boyata because they don't have a ready replacement, which makes absolute and common sense. But bearing in mind that Celtic have this model of buying cheap and selling for a decent profit, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are.
I think their transfer deadline's Thursday, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Well, I think that Boyata may be involved in the game tomorrow night, and I believe that Fulham will come back in with a better offer, and I think Celtic have got a value on Boyata. Remember, is it
a realistic one?
Well, he's got a year left in his contract, so do you bite the bullet and say he's not going? Because if they don't sell him, come January, he can go and do a pre-contract and walk away for nothing. So the fact that Celtic can't afford to turn down £10-12 million. I don't think anyway. So if they were offered maybe £10-12 million, I would think that a deal could be done after the Champions League game.
Well, here's something interesting. I've just had flashed up on the screen that Boyata's not involved tomorrow.
Not involved? Well,
yeah. What does that tell you?
Well, that maybe tell me that there could be negotiating for more money.
Rodgers has confirmed he won't feature. I'm just wondering if he's confirmed because he feels his head's not right because of this bid coming up, in the way that Lafferty was left out by Levine the other week when Rangers showed interest. But anyway, let's speak to Jack Collins, Gerry, from Fulhamish podcast. Jack, thanks for coming on the programme tonight. Now, obviously we know that one bid has been made. Is there any indication that Fulham are any more serious about Boyata and prepared to make another one?
Well, there was a lot of interest earlier in the window in this, and it was one of those things that sort of took a few people by surprise. And, I think that's, important that Fulham often do their business in a way that's very much behind closed doors. And this summer it's been a bit more open, and, we've been able to see these kind of things happening, as they pan out. But I think that a lot of people sort of passed off the Boyata rumour, very, very early on as something that probably just wouldn't go through. And it's just kept sort of popping up, and now obviously we've confirmed that there's been a bid gone in. Yesterday Fulham seemed to have done Callum Chambers on loan from Arsenal for a year, which would kind of negate the need for another centre-back. So there's a lot of people at Fulham wondering what's going on with that. Maybe that's fallen through, and that's the reason why a second bid has gone in for Boyata. Or this was a bid that went in before the whole Chambers stuff was done, and therefore it was sort of like left over, and Brendan Rodgers has only just mentioned it now. So maybe it's, that's part of it as well.
Has there been an announcement regarding Chambers?
No, there hasn't been anything. We got the...
Doesn't that surprise you, as someone who watches the club, I assume, to do your blog fairly closely and get a pattern for how Fulham work?
Yeah, the thing is, he was linked to a medical yesterday. David Ornstein, who's obviously the Arsenal kind of expert at the BBC, was the one who confirmed it. And he's the one that, when Arsenal fans see a signing confirmed by Ornstein, that's the moment they, really think that something is genuinely happening. So for us, looking at that, it seems like everything was set. The other thing is that Fulham medicals are traditionally very, very long. No one's quite sure why, but our medicals seem to stretch over 2-3 days. The thing's gone quiet on Chambers, but it also went quiet on Mawson before that one was done. So it doesn't mean that that's not happening as such, but it is a little bit surprising how dead the link went almost straight away.
Jack, Gerry Collins here. See the medical, if Fulham signed Boyata, and you're saying the medical would take maybe a couple of days, so if they'd signed him, can they sign him on the understanding that he passes a full medical, which may run after the deadline?
I don't think so. I think if a bid will be accepted, the bid will be accepted, tomorrow. Like you say, obviously, he's just been left out of the Celtic squad for the Champions League night game tomorrow, and that's somewhat surprising, but also, maybe that's just a case of making sure that everyone in the squad is fully committed and fully focused on the cause. But, you'd expect that if Celtic are going to accept a bid, they will accept it in plentiful time for them to make sure that medical can be completed, because otherwise it ends up in no man's land in January when Fulham will be able to sign him on a free. So it would be in no one's interest for Celtic to kind of hold on that one until later on, if you will.
Jack, what's your understanding that Fulham value Boyata at?
I'm not completely sure, to be honest. There's a lot of us that are a little bit perplexed by this transfer. I follow Celtic quite closely, and I'm still have horrible flashbacks of that day at Ibrox where Boyata was at fault for both of the Rangers goals. And for me, and a lot of the Fulham fan base has a sort of obvious response to the response to the kind of rumours that have been kicking around that he's not particularly a man in demand at the Cottage. There's a lot of people. His World Cup wasn't massively impressive. I don't think he did too much wrong, but he also was just basically the player that split the two centre-backs and just laid the ball off before it was played forward in a more kind of progressive way. Fulham play very much possession football that comes from the back, and having someone who isn't as comfortable in possession and who's a bit hit and miss and has that mistake in him every so often isn't kind of conducive to the way that Fulham play, and it seems like a very strange transfer from where I'm standing.
It's one of those ones, though, that I've found over the years, I have to be honest with you. If they keep coming back, and they come back over a period of time, there's usually some kind of flame behind that smoke.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm pretty convinced that these rumours that don't go away usually have some sort of substance behind them. There's a lot of fleeting things in the transfer market, but this has been touted since as pretty much as soon as the World Cup was over, the first link between the clubs was made for Boyata. So it's one of those where I think there is some substance behind the rumour, but from the fans' perspective, there's a lot of people hoping that Brendan Rodgers turning that bid down is the end of story, and that will be what Fulham are willing to pay, and they probably won't go over the odds for him. I think it's a strange one. Savisa wants another centre-back. We know that. We know that he is in the market for one. Mawson came in, but he's not fully fit yet. We have two left-sided centre-backs and no right-sided centre-backs at all in the club at the moment, which makes things slightly concerning considering our first game is in 4 days. But, so I think there probably is some truth in it, but whether Fulham are just sounding out kind of about an early bid and looking at kind of making a bid, and if they reject it, then we step away. But, you kind of have to wait and see, because the way that Fulham need a centre-back now, the kind of, I suppose, the pressure is on Tony Khan and the Fulham ownership to bring that centre-back in, and therefore, Celtic kind of have the bargaining chips in that regard.
I think if you look at Brendan Rodgers, you've probably seen how well Stefan Johansson's done at Fulham, and they probably got him on the cheap, I would believe. And if you go back to what Southampton took Fraser Foster, they come back again, took Wanyama, and they've come back again and they took Armstrong. So they see players that at a club...
And Van Dijk.
Yeah, Van Dijk. But they see players at a club and they think, well, these guys that they've came... And look at Van Dijk. They paid £12-13 million for Van Dijk. And they're unbelievable. So maybe Johansson going there for the £2 million, and I would think Celtic would think, well, Boyata, in today's market in England... £12 million for a centre-back, for me, is not a lot of money down south.
No, it's not. And it's, it's one of those things. But you look at Mawson, for example, who went for 15 million, if the kind of, it's an undisclosed, but 15 million is the figure being floated about. And, Alfie Mawson's ceiling, I think, is probably higher than Boyata's at this point. He's bear in mind it's going to be an inflated market for an English centre-back because that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But also, he's played a lot. He's had a full England cap at a young age. And I know Boyata's, not pushing old at this point. He's still got a long way to go in his career. But from the kind of levels he's played at, he strikes me as a kind of, I think 12 million would probably be the upper side of where I'd be looking to go. I think 10, 12 million is fair, but I wouldn't be pushing it up much further than that.
Yeah, interesting. Listen, Jack, thanks for coming on and talking to us about this. And maybe if the deal goes through, we'll talk to you again and just find out what the drivers were behind the interest at Craven Cottage. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Jack Collins from Fulhamish podcast talking about that bid that's allegedly been rejected by Celtic. I'm told it's around 10 million quid, Jerry, for Boyata. What does it tell us, though? Does it tell us anything? Or is it maybe literally Brendan Rodgers saying, look, his head's away at the minute, there's a lot of talk about him, let's just keep him on the bench, or don't get him involved just now, let him get away and regroup a wee bit mentally?
I think the time is wrong. Maybe right for Fulham, wrong for Celtic. They've got a Champions League. If Celtic had agreed to sell him for reported £9 million, I think that sends a message out to the fans then, who would be, I think, be disappointed at Parkhead tomorrow, thinking, well, in the Champions League we've got a chance of getting to the group stage and we're selling, as far as Brendan Rodgers is concerned, his best centre-half. I think that would disappoint a lot of fans. But if they can win the game tomorrow and they get offered £10-12 million, I think they'll do the deal, because I think they've got to wait up, Bill. In January the guy could walk away for nothing by the end of the season.
The situation being, though, that at the end of, well, even through the middle of last season till the end of last season, and maybe even before, Jerry, the back four were heavily criticised.
Yes.
The Celtic back four were heavily criticised. Now, that was with Boyata in it, in terms of him being the experienced guy, and then they brought Ayer in, they've brought now Jack Henry in as well, who are two inexperienced players, both with potential but inexperienced. But here's the thing, in the group stages you might get away with a mistake. Henry, we saw, put Celtic a goal behind against Rosenborg. If you're going to go into the group stages rather than the qualifiers, and you're still not convinced, I believe, that they could make the group stages, are you?
Well, I think they've got to win. If they don't win tomorrow, I would think it's doubtful. But if Celtic can win tomorrow night, then they've got a great chance. No matter what kind of lead they can take over there. If they win, they've got a chance. If they don't win, doubtful.
Okay.
But regarding Boyata, I mean, he went to the World Cup there and he played, and he never let him down in the World Cup. And I think his stock was risen for what he did in the World Cup. Albeit when you come back now, what Jack was saying about the Rangers game, people go back to what they do in due diligence on a player. If you do your due diligence, then you would think, well, against the Rangers, he messed up for Windass to score the first goal. And yet he has got a mistake in him. But Boyata playing at a high level, with experienced people around about him, would be a better player.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you, and I was trying to choose my words carefully so that it didn't kind of malign the champions. And that is, in the Belgian team, he's playing with better players around him.
Yes.
So does it take the pressure off him a bit and make things a lot easier for him? And if he was going to Fulham, would you say? I mean, Fulham, they're not a bigger club than Celtic in my view. That's my own opinion. They are probably financially
playing a bigger league,
but they play in a bigger league. But they are a bigger club if you look at the individual club against Celtic. For me, nah. Celtic have got a better international, worldwide reputation and a better history, if you like. But that's only my opinion. But he will go down and play in a better league, surrounded by players that generally are at a level which would be at a higher level, you would assume.
Boyata's quite young, and Boyata, when he plays for Celtic, is the linchpin of the centre-backs. He's got to make sure that the kids round about him, if it's Ayer or if it's Jack Henry, people look to Boyata. Now, Simonovic, you could say the same thing about him. People forget Simonovic is the same age as Jack Henry. He's 23 years of age, so they're quite or relatively young as a back four. But Boyata, for whatever reason, seems to be the one that they all look to keep these guys right. Now, Boyata got to England playing alongside the boy Mawson or whoever it is, experience. I think it would make him a better player. Playing with better players makes you a better player.
Do you think then that Fulham will come in with another bid?
I think Fulham will come in, and I think, that, as Brendan Rodgers has said, that the timing is not right for them. It's right for Fulham, not right for Celtic. On the night before a Champions League game, you can't sell your best centre-half. But
if you're not going to feature him, though...
Well, maybe there's a reason he's not going to feature.
Well, no, I agree. Yeah. Maybe there is. But, you know, at the end of the day, you've kind of start to think to yourself... You know, and the boy Jack Collins was saying from Fulhamish podcast as well, was saying that this keeps resurfacing at Fulham. So there's obviously something to it.
Oh, there's something to it, all right. But for Brendan's sake, then it can't be seen to sell a player before the Champions League qualifier. After it, I think that well, not an excuse, but the reason would be, well, they've offered £10 million. He could walk away in a pre-contract in January and the club get nothing. £10 million is a hell of a lot of money to Celtic.
All right, I'm going to take a quick break and I'm going to come back and ask you something else, because today has been a very busy day for me and I'm a bit black and blue from various bits and pieces, and we'll talk about that next. Don't forget, we're going to be talking about John McGinn's trip to Birmingham, and we'll also talk to Richard Wilson, who's an expert on Croatian football, about the bargain that everybody's talking about for Barisic going to Rangers. And that's all coming up in the programme before 8 o'clock tonight as well.
Love music, live sport, talking football with Bill Young and Gerry Collins on RockSport Radio.
OK, we are talking football and we will be with you until 8 o'clock tonight. Still a lot to come on the programme. By the way, my contact, who sent me a wee text message, tells me that Barisic has got 3 Croatian caps.
Oh.
So just to keep us right with that one. I notice nobody else told us that. It just shows, you see.
You're on the ball.
The men in the know.
You're on the ball.
The men in the know. Chris on Facebook, no disrespect to women's football, but it's not for me. I don't know a single person that follows it, but it's now on this show. Yeah, and I'm not going to make excuses or apologies for it, because they're getting respectable crowds for a game that's emerging in Scotland. They've done well at international level under Shelley Kerr, and, you know, the fact that you don't know anybody that follows it doesn't mean that it's not valuable to Scottish football. And as I've said before, we talk football, and that means everything related to the game, whether it's the women's game. We've talked about amputee football, we've spoken about mental health in football, we've spoken about abuse in football. If it's related to football, Chris, and I'm not being bolshy with you, we'll talk about it. And the women's game deserves as much focus as anybody else's, in the same way that we focus on the juniors and the Lowland League and various other people. Ulster Bear on Twitter. Hi Bill, Ulster Bear again. Great show. Any more news on Lafferty? I can tell you that as far as I know, that there is still that interest, and I spoke to somebody, when was it, yesterday, who said they thought that there would be a deal again done on pretty much the same basis as Boyata, because if you don't do a deal for Hearts, then he can sign a pre-contract in January anyway.
But would Gerrard want to sign him in January?
I don't know.
I wouldn't think so.
Is the honest answer. It depends what else is available to him, and whether Morelos stays or whether Morelos goes, and how quickly they can get Sadiq up to match fitness, I guess. Mm-hmm. They're low in strikers, so it's either get him now, I would have said, or get somebody else. You're
That's
right.
But if Rangers don't get him before the window, I don't see Rangers going back in January for next season. I think Steven Gerrard's maybe identified him now, because the type of player he is, we said before that he's did well against Celtic. He scored some really good goals against Celtic, and he sees him somebody with experience that can come and help him. So I think the priority is now for him. Okay. I don't see him for next season.
Well, funnily enough, somebody said to me that they thought a deal could be done before the end of this week. But it's interesting. I mean, we're under no real rush because of the window for us, as opposed to if you were bringing them from south of the border kind of thing. So I guess maybe there's no
time in their hands.
Yeah,
yes.
You know, maybe there's no real rush about the whole thing. Listen, we're going to talk in a wee minute about John McGinn and the fact that Celtic, they've not gone to meet the price as far as we know. Brendan Rodgers said again today, though, that he's the kind of player that he wants and would like him and wants him to be part of the Celtic lineup in terms of being in the squad. I'm just wondering what you do now that you've got a team like Villa involved, and I guess a lot of it would come down to the fact that John McGinn and his family are dyed-in-the-wool Celtic people, so given the chance to go to Celtic Park, no matter who was in for him, you might think he would think, I'll go. But sometimes your head can be turned when the lure of the bucks down south.
Correct. Bill, see, if you want to buy a house and you put a value on a house and you think that house goes for that in that area, and somebody tells you it's maybe way over what you want to pay, you're not going to go and pay what they want because you know that's not the going rate. I think what Celtic offered Hibs for John McGinn was fair, and I think Hibs are playing silly buggers and trying to get... Hibs have opened a can of worms by saying, to Celtic, we want £4 million. Now, £4 million is not a lot of money to teams like Aston Villa or Derby County or these clubs, but I think they maybe get their £4 million down south. I think McGinn's got a value. Celtic have matched that value, but for whatever reason, Hibs want more. So
would you be more confident talking now about McGinn ending up in Birmingham than in Glasgow?
I think he will end up in Birmingham.
You do?
I do, yes. McGinn for me is a good player. Who would McGinn replace at Celtic?
Well, we've had this conversation, yes, and I can't give you somebody that he would replace at Celtic. I have to be honest with you, I really don't know. I don't think he would start regularly, and where he would fit in. I mean, he's the kind of player that McGregor and Rogic already fill that role, to be honest with you, Jerry. That kind of going forward and fast breaking pace, and I don't see where McGinn would sit. I'm assuming that if Villa are going to pay £4 million or close to it, or just over it, then you're in a situation where they're going to play him more often. I'm suspecting, but I don't know the Villa squad and I don't know the makeup of what they've got available these days. But I'm just wondering, when Brendan Rodgers comes out openly and says he wants John McGinn as part of the squad like he did today, which I watched. It was part of the whole thing with the Boyata, where he said he didn't want Boyata to go and didn't want to lose him. Similarly, he said he thought McGinn would be a good addition to the squad and he'd like him to join Celtic, and he would be looking at what they had to do that. But I've already taken pelters today because a friend of mine who's been a Celtic fan all his life and is quite well in at Celtic Park and knows a number of people, said to me that there was a wee bit of discord between the hierarchy in Celtic Park because they couldn't agree on what they should be doing with regarding transfers. Now, he's telling me that. He's a decent source for me, and he's been right with things before, but I have no concrete evidence of it. So it's a rumour, basically, even though it's come from a pal that I know extremely well. But if John McGinn doesn't go to Celtic because somebody outbids Celtic, what do Celtic fans then make of Celtic's ambition and what Celtic want to do in terms of whether you think Rangers have brought good quality or brought good or bad quality into the team isn't the issue for me. The fact is that what they will do is put a team on the park which is better than last season's. The players they brought in are better than what they had last season, in my view. So therefore there is an opportunity to close the gap unless Celtic can push forward that wee bit more. Now with the current squad, you've got to say to yourself, can Celtic put enough between Rangers and themselves? And the answer probably would be yes. But you sometimes run a risk then if you've not got people that can fill in here and fill in there. And I'm just wondering what Celtic fans would think if Celtic didn't splash some money for McGinn or somebody else.
Well, I think,
and it's a perception thing. I'm not saying
right.
I'm not saying they should spend for the sake of buying McGinn and bust the bank or go above what they think he's worth. But there is already a perception, and I've seen it on various forums today because people have thrown me in front of them, saying that they don't understand why there's not been more movement in the transfer market by Celtic.
I don't think the majority of Celtic fans would be too bothered if they signed John McGinn or not. That's my opinion.
Right.
I don't think John McGinn's a priority for them, because I think the most improved player at Celtic for me is Callum McGregor. They've got Callum McGregor in that area. You've got Scott Brown. You've got the boy who they signed to take over for Scott Brown was Abassi. I don't see John McGinn getting into a Celtic team. But if you said to me that Celtic were going to sign a right back or a centre back, I think that would appease the Celtic fans, because as far as I'm concerned, the ones that I speak to tell me they need a right back.
So why wouldn't Brendan Rodgers play the McGinn thing down rather than play it up, saying, I like him, I want him to come to Celtic, I'm going to do what I can to get him in the squad?
I think he does like him. I like McGinn as a player, but I think you put a value on him. But I think you say, well, McGinn, and I think Brendan knows. Brendan's already said he'd be a good addition to our squad. Does that mean that he's going to be on the bench, be another Scott Allen where he's going to play or he's not going to play, or another young boy Christie going to play, put him out on loan, going to play on the bench? McGinn for me wouldn't command a shirt from 1 to 11.
OK, let's find out if there is truth in the story today that John McGinn was down talking to Aston Villa. Daniel Horton's a writer at Heart of the Holt, obviously referring to the famous Holt End at Villa Park. Daniel, thanks for coming on to us today and talking about this. First of all, can you confirm that John McGinn, who was reported to be at the Villa training ground, was actually at the Villa training ground today?
Well, yeah. Hi, thanks for having me on. It seems to be that was the case. It seems to be that some kind of medical has been booked in for tomorrow, possibly. But that, yeah, he was around and talking ahead of a potential £3 to £4 million move.
So we've actually got to the medical stage, or the medical being booked with John McGinn for Villa.
Well, that's what reports are saying today. I mean, it's hard to know, but it seems like he was talking ahead of a potential move over the next few days.
And just looking at the Villa squad now, is there a place that you can see John McGinn readily filling for Aston Villa?
I mean, definitely from our end. We've lost Robert Snodgrass from last year, and Robert Snodgrass was a big point of our attack, really. He was one of our most creative players, lots of assists, lots of goals. So I think we're crying out now for somebody like that. Obviously, we've got Jack Grealish at the minute, but if reports are to be believed, then he's not going to be staying around for too long, and could be on his way to Tottenham, which would be an absolute, well, it would be devastating for Villa fans, to be honest, because he's such a good player. So I think McGinn would go some way to hopefully filling that hole if he does move, but if not, there's a space for him anyway, because, as I said, Robert Snodgrass has left a huge hole as well. And
how much do Villa fans know about John McGinn?
In all honesty, probably not a lot. I mean, personally, I've researched him quite a bit and know quite a bit about him now, and I've seen some videos of him playing, but actually seeing full games of him playing, I don't think that many Villa fans know a lot. But from what we have heard, and from what a lot of Villa fans, I imagine, have seen on Twitter, especially from Hibs fans who have been really glowing in their references of John McGinn, I think it sounds like we'd be getting a really, really good player, and one that's very highly thought in Scotland, obviously very highly thought of by Celtic. He's had a few bids rejected for him so far this summer.
Daniel, see your midfield.
Sounds like we're getting a good player.
Daniel, see the Villa midfield. What does the midfield lack just now? Okay, I'm assuming that Grealish will go to Tottenham, and you'll probably get 30 million plus. So we know Villa need the money. The Villa, would you see it as we've got £30 million for Grealish and we're only going to pay $4 million for McGinn? That would balance the books a bit.
Oh, definitely. I think there's been a lot of talk out there about our FFP constraints and that we need some kind of transfer incoming. Grealish is obviously our biggest asset to sell, so I think you're right in the 25 to 30 million mark would be good money for him. I mean, to us, we could probably be more than that, but it's about what we're going to get for him. So I think £4 million on McGinn, who could add a lot to our midfield, to be honest, because we don't really have a good passer of the ball. And from everything that I've researched and seen, he seems like a really good passer and capable with both feet. And we don't really have that player who can really unlock the defence with a good pass. So I think he'd fit in quite well. Seemingly he's been involved in midfield threes. We've got the likes of Whelan and Jedinak as the holding players, so that allows someone like McGinn, or a Grealish at the minute, allows someone like McGinn to go forward, go from box to box and be a good driving force in the field. So I think that £4 million for someone like that would be good, and I agree with you. Although I'd hate for him to go, I think Grealish is going. So I think we need a replacement, and from what I've heard, he seems like a good replacement, a good fit for us.
Now, obviously, you've said you've researched him, and you know we'd expect that from a journalist like yourself. I'm just thinking, though, when you look at this and you say that maybe Villa fans don't know that much about John McGinn, what would be the reaction if he was parachuted into Villa Park and got a regular first-team place, or even before that? What would be the reaction to fans? Because are fans looking for maybe some kind of marquee signing, someone who's as well known south of the border as Robert Snodgrass was?
I mean, we had such a good relationship as fans with Robert Snodgrass, and he did such a good job for us that I think a lot of fans were hoping for Robert Snodgrass back, to be honest, although it would only be on loan. I think that a lot of fans are very, very realistic about what we can and can't spend. Yes, we've got these new billionaire owners, and it's fantastic, but based on our failings in the past, it means that we can't go out and spend on these huge big name signings. So actually, it's probably a better thing to do to go and look for lesser money, but still quality players. And seemingly John McGinn is this. So I think fans will understand that there's not going to be loads of big marquee signings, because actually, to be honest, we've been guilty of that for the past few years, of signing these really big name players on really big wages. And it's not, we're still in the Championship. It's not worked out for us. So I think it's also the direction of the new owners. I think they want younger players. I think they want players who are going to work hard for the team, probably on less money, costing less money, but that we can then build through and that we can blood into the first team. And hopefully, his fingers crossed massively that John McGinn is going to be a quality player that can take us forward.
Daniel, see if I was a Villa fan, John McGinn is the type of player I want in my team in the Championship. John McGinn's tenacious in the tackle. He's a very good passer of the ball. He can play box to box, and what he's got a lot of determination and a lot of hunger and a lot of desire about his game. And that boy will just thrive down there. He's the type of player. The fans will love him if Villa sign him. They will love him because he plays with a heart and plays for the jersey.
Yeah, I mean, from our Twitter account, we interact with loads of Villa fans, and to be honest, there's a lot of buzz about him because of the videos. I mean, yeah, there's videos on YouTube, and you see someone's best parts. But from what he looks, the kind of player he looks like, as you say, a tenacious box-to-box player that's going to try hard, going to play some really good passes. He's got a good eye for goal, can really strike the ball, and got use of those feet. I think will already have the fan support anyway. But as long as he's there trying hard, as long as he's there in the middle of the field working hard, then I don't think that Villa fans will complain at all. I think over the past 5 years we've been used to the kind of player that a big name, but not necessarily trying hard or has signed the wrong type of players. But I think that John McGinn seems like the right type of player for Villa, and I think fans will get really, really well behind him.
I was just thinking about Villa's expectation level. Obviously, Villa are a big, big club, and everything's there, as they have been, being a Premiership club and being in the top flight in England. How much pressure is on the management team to get back up this season? And bringing in players like John McGinn is great, and I have, like Gerry, no doubt that he can do a job which can, really help you get back to where Villa fans think they belong. But bringing in 2 or 3 players possibly might not be the answer. Have you managed to maintain and retain a number of players that were key players from last season, or have they had a bit of a cull in the way to reduce costs?
I mean, the problem with the players we had last season is that a lot of the players were on loan. So we had, obviously, Robert Snodgrass. Although John Terry wasn't on loan, he was a year contract, and if we didn't go with, he wasn't going to stay. So it was effectively a loan. We had Lewis Graben on loan. So a lot of our Sam Johnston, of course, who then went to West Brom this season. A lot of our core players in the heart of our team were loan players. So really, the heart of our team is starting from scratch again. So I think there is expectation on Villa to get to the top. We've still kept players at the minute. Obviously, that could change come Thursday. We've still kept players like Grealish, as it stands, like James Chester. We've still kept players, got good players in there, like Conor Hourihane and Albert Adoma, who's been really good for us last season. So I think there is still an expectation for us to get up this season. I think top 6 is a minimum still. I think the fact that we've now steadied the ship in terms of our new owners, and that we've bought a few players. We've re-signed Axel Twanzebe on loan from Manchester United, and we've signed a few goalkeepers to fill Sam Johnston's void, and then we're potentially signing John McGinn. I think the expectation will still be there based on the players that we've already got. So if we can sign a few more players with the same attitude as you guys described, as John McGinn having, then I think we have to be favourites to either go up or at least secure a top 6 finish.
Daniel, are the fans happy that they kept with Steve Bruce rather than what was reported, Thierry Henry going to be installed as coach?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think whatever happens, now that the season started, every fan has to get behind Steve Bruce, because if they don't, we've got no chance. So all the fans have to get behind him. I think it was a really odd one, because obviously Steve Bruce was a really experienced manager that has had 1.5, almost 2 seasons at the club and hasn't delivered the objectives that was required of him. But then to have Thierry Henry as the only other candidate seemingly was a really strange one, because it was the polar opposite of Steve Bruce. Personally, when those rumours were going around and we had new owners, I thought that Steve Bruce would go. I thought they'd change, and I kind of wanted a change. But it hasn't happened. Steve Bruce has gone on at the minute to sign some fairly decent players, and hopefully we'll sign a few more. We're still looking quite strong. If we lose Jack Grealish, that could change. But I think now that the season started, I think fans will get behind Steve Bruce. However, I think it's if a few results don't go our way, it could be that then starts to change. I don't think he's got a lot of I don't think that the fans will have a lot of patience with him this season if things start to go wrong, given that he's already had 2 seasons to try and give it a really good go.
Okay.
But as it stands now, with the 3-1 win against Hull at the weekend, on Monday, I think there's some support there.
Daniel, thanks for being on with us tonight. Appreciate it greatly and giving us the insight to where you are with John McGinn at Aston Villa. Daniel Horton there from Heart of the Whole, which is he's a writer for them, talking to us about John McGinn. I didn't know they were at that stage where medicals were being planned and things like that, Gerry. I hadn't heard any of that today.
No, I never heard that myself, but it's a wee bit similarities there with Celtic with Boyata, because Hibs play the Europa League on Thursday night.
That's right. So
the transfer window closes at 5 o'clock on Thursday night, so the deal would need to be done tomorrow, and then McGinn would travel. So you would know tomorrow, I would think, if it's a deal.
Good move for John McGinn in your mind?
Oh, great move. As I said before, Bill, I don't see McGinn getting into a Celtic team, because I think Callum McGregor is the most improved player at Celtic. Scott Brown's going to play every week. The big boy Rodgers is going to play week in, week out. I didn't see McGinn coming into any shape of the team. He's not a wide player. You've got the young boy James Forrest one side. Who's the other boy got at Morgan, who's injured at the moment. So I couldn't see a place for him again. And Brendan said he'd be a great addition to the squad. He would be. But for me, there's a value on him. Hibs didn't take the value. If they get £4 million off of Villa, I'm sure McGinn will go down there. And the type of player I said to you last week about that Sunderland were signing players that haven't got that first division, McGinn for me is the type of player you want in your team to get into the league above.
Okay. Round about 7:30 we'll be talking to Richard Wilson now. Richard is a bit of an aficionado on Croatian football, and he'll be talking about whether Rangers actually have got a bargain with Borna Barisic, who signed for the club. It was announced this morning. Barisic, of course, known to Rangers from 2 legs against Osijek in the Europa League qualifiers, and stood out. So we'll find out what Richard thinks about that signing and what Barisic will actually offer to Rangers. A lot of people have been asking me if he can play like kind of left-sided central defender, which I don't know if he's ever done it or not, but I think he's a quality enough player that if you put him there, he could probably do a job. I'm not sure he'd want to stay there, but he could probably do a job for you. However, it's one of those things, catch-22, Jerry.
Well,
the boy whips balls in going down the wing, so asking him to stay back, you're losing part of his overall value, which is quite an important part of his overall value.
Well, it gives Steven Gerrard a problem now, because if he signed him, he's going to play him at left back, which means Flanagan, who is playing left back, does he put Flanagan back to right back?
Well, that's what we were talking about yesterday on the show with Hugh when he was in, and I said, has Steven Gerrard got in his mind that Barisic goes to left back, Flanagan, who is a right back, goes to right back, and he moves Tavernier forward one. But then what does that do with Candace and possibly other players that are on the midfield kind of roster at Rangers? They're a bit like Celtic. They've got an abundance of midfield players.
See, for me again, Taverner's more a player going forward. I don't think he's a good defender, so it would probably make sense to me
to move him forward,
but in front of Flanagan. Flanagan being the right back with Taverner being the wing or the.
Well, here's the interesting thing. One of the comparisons that's been made against Flanagan and Declan John is the fact that most people are saying they think Flanagan's a better defender, but they don't see him going forward as much as John went forward. So it would make sense that if you had him and he was going to play a wee bit deeper at right full-back, Tavernier would move forward and he would take on the role of going forward, because Tavernier's not the best defender there is.
Mm-hmm. I think, see, if you play as a full-back for Rangers or Celtic, to be fair, in the Scottish game, you're probably tested, if you're lucky, 5-6 games a season, if you're a defender. So I remember years and years ago, I was involved with the Scottish B team, and Jockstein was a manager. It was 1985, I think it was, and he called off through illness, and Terry Christie took over. And at one of the meetings we had in Edinburgh, Jockstein said that in your team you should always have 4 defenders. That's it, just 4 defenders. So that would give you 6 outfield players that's forward thinking. So in the Rangers team, have you got 4 decent defenders? In the Celtic team, have they got 4 decent defenders? I don't think any of them have. Because they're too busy. Kieran Tierney's great going forward. Flanagan, well, you're saying doesn't go forward, but Taverner goes forward. So the art of defending now is left. I think people now want guys that can bomb up and down channels and get balls in the box, but particularly no good defenders.
It's going to be interesting to see what he does, because, Tavernier obviously has had that criticism levelled at him for quite a while now, that he's great going forward.
Yes. But
coming back and defending, I mean, his positional sense for me is not the best either. He's not the best tackler there is. He's not the best defender there is. Is Flanagan a better defender? I think overall he certainly is. But Tavernier, I still think, has a role to play for Rangers, and if it's in that forward role, it does ask questions of what Steven Gerrard does with certain other players. Well,
there's a lot of negatives on Tavernier about defending, but I tell you what, Bill, if you ask MD, which right back scores you more goals than any other right back in Britain? Probably Taverner. He scored an unbelievable amount of goals for Rangers as a fullback. So maybe that tells you.
I'm just wondering as well, if you went with that, does it alleviate? Does it make him think about changing even the shape of the team? Instead of going with a back four, would he possibly go with a back three?
No, I don't see him going with a back three, because you've got the two centre-back, Golston and
Katic.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense,
right,
does it?
So if you've got Katic and him, and you've got... He's basically signed, if you look at it now, he's signed a back four.
Yeah.
He's got Flanagan right back, he's gone to the boy Barasic at left back, and he's signed two centre backs. So that's your four defenders. So I think Steven Gerrard would be thinking, well, I've got my four defenders now, so we'll worry about what's in front of them now.
All right, well, let's worry about something else, because we were talking about it in the office. It's been controversial. It was debated greatly last night, but of course it has now changed shape a wee bit, and that's the Morelos red card at the weekend, because Rangers have said they will appeal and have submitted an appeal to overturn the red card given to Alfredo Morelos. Colombian striker was dismissed in 12 minutes after appearing to kick out at Scott McKenna on Sunday's 1-1 draw. And let's not forget that McKenna barged him twice. So the whole red card thing, we were talking in the office, and we actually mentioned this yesterday as well, that by the letter of the law, then Morelos goes. He's got to go. But there should have been some kind of retribution against McKenna as well, possibly a yellow card. But if common sense had broke out 12 minutes into a game, which is a bit of a kind of, what would we call it, cauldron anyway, Jerry, between Rangers and Aberdeen, historically, did the referee make the right decision? Or take that back, because he didn't make the decision.
Correct.
The assistant made the decision. Was it the right decision?
I think, Bill, by the letter of the law, he gets sent off for violent conduct, okay? Violent conduct, you're off the park. I'd be interested to know what the appeal is. What is the appeal based on? Is the appeal based because he done it? He kicked out. So to do what he done is a red card. What is Rangers' appeal based on? That they didn't book or send off McKenna? Or is it mitigating circumstances to why Morelos has done it? But he's done it. Irrespective if he's retaliated, it should be a red card for him, retaliation, and possibly a yellow card for McKenna for the initial contact anyway. So I don't know what the appeal is based on.
It's part of the issue with this thing now, that has it become more about the way it was dealt with or the way it came about rather than the actual action itself now? Because you know that sometimes these things can grow arms and legs, and we were talking about it last night, and Murdo and Hugh were absolutely adamant, and I think I have to agree with them, that it would have been more beneficial for the referee, rather than have had the card out his pocket, just point to Morelos and say, you, show him the red card and give him his marching orders. Surely when the assistant brings it to his attention, he has to get an overview of what the events were, what happened and what led up to it happening.
See, Bill, I'll go back to the programme last week where we said that I believed that referees should go and give an explanation. That was a prime example. He should have been quizzed, and he should be allowed to say, I sent Morelos off because my assistant referee told me that he lashed out and kicked. Now, it's violent conduct, but what he's missed out is what McKenna, the mitigating circumstances is McKenna bars him twice. We've all seen that. So for him not to see it, I don't think Morelos will get overturned. I think maybe you'll find that maybe McKenna will get a yellow card or maybe a red card for his part in it. I do not see Morelos is getting overturned. I don't, because he did it. The letter of the law is violent conduct is a red card. He did it. Are they going to say he never done it? When the camera said it, the camera showed you done it.
Now, you and I had a debate also over we're at loggerheads with this one,
right,
over the Dominic Ball one,
right?
Because you're saying that there's two players coming across, Aberdeen players who could have got to the ball, but there is obviously the argument that I made, which is, yes, they could have, but they might not have. If Windass hadn't have been pulled back, he could have got to it well before them, denied a goal-scoring opportunity, which The debate is, could those defenders have got there and denied that goal-scoring opportunity anyway?
Right.
And I said, my issue is that Ball did that. We will never know whether Morelos or they would have got there first. Windass or they would have got there first. But the bottom line is that he made no attempt to play the ball, Dominic Ball. And I felt that if you're going to give that penalty, he's got to go.
Did Dominic Ball get booked?
I can't remember, to be honest with you.
He never get booked.
I don't think he did.
He never get booked. So that tells me the referee seen the two Aberdeen defenders. So it's a 50-50 decision. Would Windass get the ball and beat the two defenders who are goal side? That's a debate. That's why he never gets sent off.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
And I never even thought about this now, but that's a very good point. Let me ask you a question. If someone commits a blatant foul like that, holds the man back in the box, and a penalty's given, surely the minimum he has to get is a booking.
Well, you would think that common sense would tell you would think he would get a yellow card for it. But the fact is, it's a double punishment then, if he gets booked and it's a penalty kick. You normally don't get double punishments, do you?
Okay, well, no, that's a valid point.
The referee, in his opinion, is given the penalty kick, but he must have seen the two Aberdeen players. No, there's no reason to say that.
Well, how does he make that judgment, though? Because he can't tell. He can't tell to the degree that the shot's been pulled and how hard he's held them back.
Right.
So how can he make that judgment? I'm not quite sure how he can make the judgment about whether Windass gets to the ball first or whether the defenders get to the ball first.
There's no doubt Windass would get to the ball first. There's no doubt about that.
But the doubt comes as to whether one of those players could put in a tackle or something.
Yes.
Right.
The doubt is, does he get tackled or does Windass hit it and it hits? There's obstacles in front of Windass between the goal and the obstacles is Aberdeen defenders. That's why the referee didn't send him off. In my opinion, if it had been nobody there, I would then say it's a red card and a penalty kick. Because it's an empty goal, he's tapping the ball in. The fact is, he's got work to do to get the ball in the net. Hence the referee thinking, well, there's two defenders there. Who might have blocked it? Who might have tackled him?
Okay, let me ask you this as well.
Right.
Overall, do you think the referee had a good game?
No, I don't. I don't think he had a good game. But I think when I see the interview after the game with Stephen Gerrard about they outplayed Aberdeen for 93 minutes, which they did. But there's 3 minutes a lapse of concentration. Now, if you look at the Aberdeen goal, Golston raised his foot. If Golston didn't take his foot off the ground, the ball would hit him in the foot.
Do you know, we debated that last night as well, Jerry, and
right.
I would like your views on it, because it looked as if Golston was trying to avoid that deflection.
Correct.
And at that time, the deflection might have been the best option. I can only assume that maybe he got a call from the keeper because he'd already started, and he thought, right, I've got to get out of the way because the keeper's down for it. I don't know.
But the old cliche is, see if you got for a high ball and the keeper shouts, keeper's ball, and the ball's coming directly to you.
You go for it.
You clear the ball.
That's what we said last night.
And then you ask a question.
That's what we said last night. The bottom line with any defender is if he's got the opportunity to stop the danger, he takes it.
Correct. Now, I don't know if Golston got a shout. To me, Golston raised his foot to take his foot away from the ball. If he thought, I don't think that would get into your mind if I deflect that. The only way he would do that is by a shout to not touch the ball. But if he does it, if he keeps his foot in the ground, the ball hits him and the goal doesn't arise. But for 3 minutes, Rangers went to sleep.
I thought the player at fault. And you know, it's difficult. It's easy to be very critical when you're sitting at home.
Yeah.
I thought the player at fault was Tavernier, because I thought when the ball came across, Tavernier was watching the man rather than the ball, and that's how they ended up colliding with each other. Or the Aberdeen player ran into Tavernier because Tavernier wasn't going to get that ball. He was watching that man rather than the ball for me. But that again is just a very personal opinion. Listen. Part of this programme, and it happens to all of us, is that you get bits and pieces chucking in all the time. So we're going to kind of talk about this now, because we're getting stuff in via Twitter, as you would expect. And please, you just answer them as you want to answer them, because obviously You know, I want your opinion on it.
You get an honest opinion.
You'll get used to all this stuff,
Okay.
Jerry, trust me. By the letter of the law, this is Sammy who sent this in. By the letter of the law, there was lots of things should have happened yesterday and didn't.
Agree with that. Yeah, you're right, Sammy.
Colin Ranucci, saying you can't get a double punishment is like saying you can punch someone in the box and get a penalty but not carded.
I think circumstances, everything's to do with opinion and circumstances. If the penalty kicks that you see in the World Cup where they were impeded, players were impeding each other, they were given penalty kicks, did they get sent off?
Okay, all right. Think Jerry needs to rewatch the penalty incident. The Aberdeen players were nowhere near Windass and the goal was gaping. Now, I think we've actually got a clip of it which you won't see, but there we go. That is quite thingy. Let me have a look if I can do this or not. See if I can show you this, Jerry.
Right.
If you want to have a look and see what your thoughts are now.
Okay. How far is Windass away from the ball?
Yeah, I would say probably, 5 yards?
5 yards in that picture. So how far...
That we're not seeing. Okay. So I'll try and get another picture
so
with the defenders.
Okay, the ball. Where the ball is, where do you think the nearest Aberdeen player is to that ball?
I would have probably thought at least equidistant from Windass. Yeah,
I would have said equal. So there's a doubt there who gets to the ball first, right. or if he can go and put the ball in the back of the net.
Okay, listen, but just while we're talking about it, because it's quite an interesting one, when you see the picture like that, it does look fairly clear-cut, but it doesn't show you where the Aberdeen players are.
Correct.
You're absolutely right. If anybody can show us an overview of that penalty by sending in a picture where it shows where the players actually are as well, the Aberdeen players, I'd be grateful, because we have had a look at it. And looking at the way we've seen it, it looks fairly conclusive, but it doesn't show where the Aberdeen players are. It's hang on, they're all showing the same picture here now.
Bill, let me ask you something. Do you think not sending, according to the Rangers fans, not sending the Aberdeen ball off, did that have a bearing in the game?
That's one of those ones I don't think you can tell.
Did it change? In your opinion, do you think it changed the game?
Well, let me ask you it this way: Do you think that the Morelos sending off changed the game?
I think it changed the game for Rangers because Rangers dominated the game.
So, do you think it changed it for the better or the worse for Rangers?
Well, I know they played well with 10 men, probably for the worse, because had Rangers played with 11 men, I believe Rangers would have beat Aberdeen. Then
let me ask you this: if ball had been sent off and things had been levelled up, psychologically would it have helped Rangers? Do you think?
We don't know that, because how many times has 10 men won games?
Hang on a minute, you're asking me to make a judgment. Do you think it would have helped them?
I know, but Rangers dominate. Aberdeen were poor. Aberdeen looked tired after their exploits at Burnley, where by all accounts they could have and maybe should have won the game in 90 minutes. They put a lot of effort into that game, and it showed on Sunday. That's probably the poorest Aberdeen performance I've ever seen against a Rangers team. The poorest ever.
There's an interesting one.
They never laid a glove on them.
Sorry, Jerry, there's an interesting one, but he'd be offside, Morelos. Let's turn that round for you and have a look. I still think it's inconclusive who'd get to that first. I think if I'm looking at it now, that Aberdeen player there would probably have got it first.
Right. Now, what I said to you before, was prior to the incident, the Rangers player was offside, interfering with play, which was Morelos.
Yeah.
Had the linesman flagged for that, he's given offside and it doesn't happen.
Right.
He didn't flag for it, and then the penalty incident arises.
No, I think that's a good point. And I can see what you're saying. And I can see why Rangers fans are miffed and not agreeing with what you're saying, but I have to say, looking at that, I can see exactly where the debate would have been had this played out, to be honest with you. So, okay, I'm happy with that.
See, the thing is, Bill, see that in 90 minutes, Rangers left there knowing that they were the better team. But for a lapse of concentration for 3 minutes, they would have won the game. Now, Steven Gerrard and probably the Rangers fans, everybody's uptight, and they go back to but he should have sent Dominic. Rangers raised their game when ball would never get sent off. They raised their game. Aberdeen never laid a glove on them. But then you look for not excuses, because the excuse was that they've lapsed their concentration for 3 minutes. Rangers were great on Sunday. Great. It's probably the best performance as a team against Aberdeen without beating them. Now, I said to you last week, Pedro Cachina's team or Graham Murty's team went to Aberdeen, beat them 3 times with a poorer team and drew once. Rangers go there, totally outplay them, but don't win the game.
It's interesting. It is interesting. But look, it's happened now. Rangers have put in the appeal. You don't think it'll be overturned? If I'm honest, I don't think it'll be overturned either.
I'd like to know, what is the appeal? What are you appealing?
Right.
What do you think? If you're sitting the panel, Bill, and the appeal comes in, what are they going to base the appeal on?
Well, I don't know, because you'd have to hear it before you can make a judgment on it, and we're second-guessing it that way.
Yes.
In the same way that would be second-guessing, would it affect Rangers in a positive, negative way had ball been sent off? I mean, for me, you're right, you can't tell. The only thing you can tell is if you've been in a position previously where something like that has happened. If you see it being levelled up, you think to yourself, hang on, we're back in the game here because it's a level playing field. And so psychologically, I think there's a definite benefit. Whether you can capitalise on that, it's a toss of a coin. And like you say, sometimes 10 men can be harder to beat than 11.
Rangers were galvanised. Rangers, as we know, they dominated the game. But because they didn't win the game, they've put an appeal in. I just don't understand, what is the appeal based on? Is it based on mitigating circumstances?
Somebody said they've sent me a video, but I haven't got it. But here's a good point. Here is a good point again, and there's so many talking points with this. And that is, Douglas has sent in a comment saying the ball was travelling at pace towards Windass and away from the defenders, so the likelihoods they're not going to get to the ball, so that's why Dominic Ball felt he had to foul him. It's a valid argument, but until you see the video, you can't see how valid.
Okay.
I guess.
Would you agree that Dominic Ball tugged his shirt?
Yes, he yanked his shirt.
So he's tugged his shirt. So it's not a red card for tugging a shirt, is it?
But if you see categorically by looking at the video again that the ball is travelling at pace away from the defenders, so there's not the opportunity for them to block, then it becomes a different scenario, surely.
Yes, of course it does, but that's left out to the interpretation of opinion of a referee. In his opinion, was the defenders going to get a cross? Was a defender going to get a tackle in? So I don't think that had a bearing in the game. I think Rangers are now feeling angry that ball wasn't sent off because they drew the game. If Rangers won the game, Bill, would Rangers have been appealing or having a go at the referee for Dominic Ball not being sent off had they won the game?
Well, no, they wouldn't have.
No, but it's because they didn't win the game and they felt aggrieved that ball wasn't sent off. Now, I'm repeating myself here. I would like to know what the appeal is based on, because do they say he never done it when the video evidence shows you clearly he kicked out? You kick out as violent contact. No.
Here's a potential argument, though, with this. You're saying because they never won the game, that's why people are complaining. But at that point, Rangers wouldn't know whether they were going to win the game or not. So, and they were complaining that ball wasn't sent off at the time the offence was committed. The players were. Tavernier was quite strident in making the representation of Kevin Clancy.
Correct. So did the referee not give them an answer as to why he wasn't sent off? Because I watched the Rangers players walking away, shaking their head as if they disagreed with his answer. That was my interpretation.
Okay.
I go back to again what we say, Bill, about surely in this day and age, modern technology, referees should be allowed to go into a press room and give an answer to what we said last week is, I gave a decision because that's it. No questions given, no questions. That's it. His answer to people leaving the ground as to why he didn't send ball off. Give his verdict and walk away, and then we all know.
Do you know my only worry, though, as I said before, and that is the fact that if you let the referee go in and just give his statement, his opinion,
yes,
that's great. But my worry is that he then opens himself up to interrogation where people dispute still that decision.
No, I think it's organised where you get into a press room, it'll be the referee supervisor, whoever, would inform the assembled media. The referee will come in and give us an explanation as to why he did A, B, C. No questions are taken here. He will give his explanation, end of. At least they would hear it, they would report it on the radio, they would write it in the newspapers, and we'd all then know. We'd all have clarity as to why he didn't send him off, or clarity as to why he sent Morelos off.
Right, what have I got here? Somebody sent me something. They're sending me things now where I haven't got my specs on, so I can't, and it's all wee toty bloody writing anyway, so that's not going to happen. Sorry guys, but I can't read that stuff. You know, when you get to my age and you become as knackered as I am, and Gerry will vouch for how knackered that look. Trust me, I just cannot read that, sadly. But it's an interesting debate. It's something to do with the rules, where it's shown me. That's another one, but I still can't see it. It just says that's the FA, the laws of the game, and FA rules, and it's got. No, I can't even start to read it. It's that small.
Bill,
sadly.
See, for me, the Rangers fans that was at Pittodrie on Sunday should have left there drooling over their team, who played with 10 men for 78 minutes and outran them. There was a point I was kind of timing the game, and I think it might have been around about 80 minutes where Rangers broke away. Rangers had 4 players in the box against Aberdeen's 3. Mm-hmm. The fitness levels that Rangers showed on Sunday was phenomenal.
I think that's been a big thing that people have noticed anyway. It's just been the fitness levels generally.
So for that, the Rangers fans must be thinking, God, hey, we've got a chance this year.
It's an interesting one. I'm still trying to get this thing so I can make a definitive decision. One of the things that they are kind of sour about, it has to be said, is that Stevie May challenge on Ryan Jack, where they feel that was, I'm just looking at it now. They're saying red card. I don't think I'd have given a red card for that, but I'd definitely given the yellow card, which is what happened.
You got the yellow card, yes.
Yeah, so that's that one. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk about Borna Barisic, who is the latest signing for Rangers at £2 million. Is he the snip that everybody's thinking he is? We'll talk to Richard Wilson, who is a bit of an expert on Croatian football, and he's up next on RockSport.
Love music, live sport, talking football with Bill Young and Gerry Collins on RockSport Radio.
Okay, RockSport Radio for this Tuesday night. Gerry Collins, as you know, is my guest. We've been talking about all sorts of things. We spoke about Boyata and whether Fulham would go for him. We spoke about McGinn down at Aston Villa. And the other news today on the transfer front, of course, has been Rangers signing left back from Osijek, who they met in the Champions League, and that's Borna Barisic. £2 million is reported. I don't know that much about Barisic, didn't know that much about him before. He shone in both legs. Was that enough for Rangers to go out and spend £2 million? Someone who does know more about Croatian football than either Gerry and I put together is Richard Wilson, journalist and blogger at The Football Life. How are you, Richard? We spoke not long ago. I hope you're well.
Very well, thank you. Yes, glad to be on after such a short break.
Well, let's talk about Barisic, because, of course, it'd been a point of debate whether Rangers should look at him after the second leg. Most fans were ranting about him on the forums. They were saying it would be an idea to look at him. Rangers very quickly moved. I don't know whether they had any knowledge of him previously before the 2 legs. I don't know whether they'd found anything out from Katic, who's one of his countrymen. Tell us a little bit about Barisic. You know about Croatian football and know it fairly well. Tell us a little bit about Barisic and whether Rangers for £2 million have got a bit of a steal.
I certainly do feel it's a good deal for Rangers, and I do think if they've been aware of Katic, they will have been aware of Barisic. He's been one of the standout performers in the league for the past couple of seasons. this is his second attempt at a big move. He moved to Dinamo about 4 seasons ago and didn't make it. He returned to Osijek 2 years ago, and then he's been able to become part of a better setup there under Zoran Zekic, and then make a name for himself again. In terms of the type of player he is, I think the best comparison is perhaps Lee Wallace. In terms of how much he wants to get forward, he's got the size, he's physical. There shouldn't be a problem with him adapting to Scottish football. The only issue you would perhaps foresee, as he would in any side, is just how quickly he's going to be in sync with Rangers' attacking motion and defensive organisation as well. But that sort of thing will come in time. It's not something I would have much in the way of worries about.
So you're saying that if they knew about Katic, they would definitely known about Barisic? Definitely.
Barisic has been a standout player in the league for a few years now. It's more been bad luck that the big move has never really arrived for him. And I think once you get to sort of 23 or 24 in that type of league, the chances of a big move rapidly decreases just because you sort of get passed over and scouts are looking for younger players, the 21, 22-year-olds. For Barisic, he was looked at by Dinamo again this summer. They moved instead for a chap from Salonika called Marin Lejevac. But I think in the long run, for him to move to Rangers, he'll see that as a very positive step forward in terms of his visibility for national side selection, and also in terms of earning potential. He's on many multiples of what he was on at Osijek.
Richard, when was he last capped for Croatia? I see he's got 3 caps. What was his last cap?
With the Croatian cap system, he does have 3 caps. We wouldn't normally necessarily count them as caps. It sort of was B internationals more than anything.
Yeah.
He went to the China Cup with them in January 2017 and then was picked for a friendly against Mexico last summer. That he's got the 3 caps isn't necessarily an indication, because they do tend to rely almost wholly on players from the domestic leagues. So you do get a lot of players who have no right calling themselves full internationals becoming full internationals. Of more import was that he was called up to the preliminary squad for the World Cup. But even then, I wouldn't necessarily think he's got a long-term future with the national side. Less because of his talent and more just because of what else is there for them to pick up. So you've got Strinic and Pivaric currently, and then going forward they've got a 20-year-old called Borna Sosa, who's just moved to Stuttgart from Dinamo, who's the long-term future of that position. It's sort of Barisic's poor fortune just to sort of fall at the wrong age between generations in that position for the national side.
When you look at this move, for Rangers, they've got John Flanagan, who's playing at left back, who's a natural right back. A lot of people have been asking us, and certainly asking me on Twitter, has Barisic ever played left central defence, or is he capable of doing that? Has he ever shown in that position?
He's never really been used in that position, no. He's more been used outside of left back as left midfield. So I think if Rangers were looking to move sort of using Tavernier and himself as wing backs, then he would be a very good selection to do that. But if you're looking to use him as a left centre back, as they sometimes did with Lee Wallace, he'd need a lot of training to do that.
Right. So it's not a position that he readily could fill.
No, definitely not. But I think with having Goldson and Katic in there, they've shown already this season that they're quite capable of not needing that backup. Left back.
No, the only reason I ask is because Steven Gerrard is actively searching for a left-sided centre back, and I just wondered whether he saw an opportunity to maybe exploit Katic in 2 separate positions. If he had to, and you've kind of answered that question, it's probably a non-starter purely and simply because he's never played in that position. In real terms, it seems a reasonably good value for money deal then to bring Barisic to Ibrox. Would you agree that it's money well spent?
I think for $2 million, Yes, I've seen various reports of what the fees, anything between about 1.5 and 3.5 was originally quoted by the Croatian press. I think how it's sort of shaken out is it works out around about 2.5 once you take into account sell-on fees and things like that. Obviously, nowadays, headline figures are never what's the actual true value of a deal. What possibly concerns me a little bit more is the reported salary I've seen. I think it's on around $15,000 a week, which I would suggest would say his agent's done a very good job for him, and he'll be getting an extra Christmas bonus because he won't have been on more than $2,000 a week in Croatia. So it's certainly a big pay rise for him. But he's definitely got the sell-on value that Rangers would want. And if you're getting this season, I think as the draw may shake out for them, Europa League group stage qualification, he's going to have a really good place in which to showcase his talents, and potentially as soon as next year, Rangers are going to be able to make a profit on him, selling him down to England, assuming he hits the ground running.
Richard, does he speak English fluently?
Yeah, he does very well. Saw an interview with him.
Oh, yeah, answer that. Thanks, Richard. You said that without moving your lips.
Sorry, Jerry, I couldn't resist it because I watched an interview. What I do is I sit and I look at all the bits and pieces that are hitting the headlines, and I watch the interview with Brendan Rodgers about Boyata and about McGinn. Then I watched the one with Barisic, and then there was a couple of others that I watched. But his English was very good indeed. Richard, thanks for being on with us tonight and telling us a little bit about Barisic. Not somebody I knew a great deal about before seeing him on the situation for the Europa League qualifiers, but I kind of feel that he's going to become a bit of a favourite, because watching that interview that I'm telling Jerry about, he seems to be a player who gives his all and wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah, there's certainly no doubt about that. He will take to the Scottish game and the physicality of it very quickly, I think, and he spent so long at Osijek, both as a youth player and as a first team starter and a leader more than anything, that he will be I expect to be very popular with the fans. At the end of the day, what every fan wants to see is someone who's going to run his heart out and lead by example, and that's what he's going to do. And that's something that Rangers have clearly prioritised in their scouting and the sort of players they've brought in this season, and Barisic fits that template perfectly.
Okay, thank you for that. Richard Wilson there talking to us, journalist and blogger at the Football Life. So that seems to be clearing up partially part of what we were talking about earlier on, that if they knew about Katic, they certainly knew about Barisic. I suppose the question you ask then, if you're looking at Barisic, or you know about him and you know about Katic, why didn't they have him on the radar to sign at the time they were kind of looking about? But then I guess one of the things they were looking for was a centre-back, not a left-back at that time.
I think you prioritise, don't you? The fact that you get John Flanagan going to left-back, you get Tav at right-back, so you prioritise. But I think if he gets what he wants, if he did know about him, then he's went back in thinking, I can get him for a song.
No, you're absolutely right. Jerry, let's look to European stuff now, if we possibly can, because we're at some fairly critical times in terms of our teams in Europe, and we've got Celtic up against AEK Athens mañana. Spanish, no Greek, but I thought I'd chuck it in.
Okay.
And I just wanted your thoughts on that one. Bearing in mind, last week I asked you fairly pointedly, did you think Celtic could get, or would get, not could get, but would get to the group stages, and you said you didn't think they would. I think
it's a hard road for them. I think it's wrong that they've got to play 4 qualifiers for a start anyway. That's obscene. The fact that they drew AEK Athens, they've only won the league once in the last 24 years. Which was last season. But it's still a tough place to go. Do they not call the place, is it hell on earth or something they call it? But I think it's a real tough game for them. I think Celtic have to win tomorrow. A draw is no good. I don't think if they draw the game that you've got to go over there and unless you get a scoring draw over there. But I think Celtic have to score tomorrow. And any kind of victory would give them a chance. But they have to win tomorrow.
Is it a big loss, though, that we hear that Boyata's not going to feature?
I wasn't sure about Jack Henry and young Ayer, 2 young kids in there, but they've equipped themselves very well. albeit Jack Henry made the mistake against Rosenborg. They got away with it. I think mistakes are worth making as long as you learn by them. So if the two of them learn by their mistakes, then they'll be better players for it. But coming against better teams, if you make errors, you'll be punished. So I think all depends. And I read somewhere that IEK think that the weakest part of Celtic teams is their defence. So I would imagine they'll play on that tomorrow.
Is this one of those ones where when you're at home it's crucial to keep a clean sheet, and if you're away you've got to go for that away goal, or can you be happy coming back with a draw?
No, I think if you talk away, a draw away from home.
Yeah.
Oh, I think a draw away from home is a great result. As I say again, Bill, I think Celtic have to win tomorrow. They've got the firepower. It's whether they can contain Athens at the back, I'm not sure. I'm genuinely not sure about that.
What does Celtic do? Because obviously you've got concerns about the back.
Yes.
What does Celtic do if Boyata goes? How quickly do they prioritise a centre back? Could they have one lined up, for example, do you think? I mean, I really don't know. See,
the one thing about Brendan Rodgers, you never hear any snippets coming out of Parkhead. Everything is in-house. You don't hear a thing. I said earlier, I believe that after the game tomorrow, I think a deal will be done for Boyata. I genuinely believe a deal will be done, not before the game. And then...
Do you also think then that Brendan Rodgers has potentially got a deal on hold to replace Boyata?
I wouldn't surprise me if they get a deal done tomorrow. I wouldn't surprise me if they have someone ready and willing to come in, yeah. Okay. Now remember that there were talk about John Terry coming in for a year with his experience. So John Terry's not at a club yet. And I would take John Terry for a year, purely for the fact that he could come in and help people like Ayer and Jack Henry and Simonovic. So okay. I would think that he's got his eye on somebody, yes.
Hibs against Lauder on Thursday in the Europa League. Quite a difficult tie, especially if they lose John McGinn as well. So,
same situation. To Hibs sell McGinn before the transfer deadline's at 5 o'clock. So, can they turn down £4 million? I don't think so. I think if Aston Villa come in with the £4 million offer, John McGinn will be away.
Whereas you can readily see that Celtic might have a deal in place for another centre-back, and it could be somebody, like you say, like John Terry, who comes in for a season. It's not quite as easy to see how Hibs fill the hole that John McGinn leaves. They brought Stevie Malin in, obviously, and he scored at the weekend. But John McGinn would be a big loss to Hibs, and being able to replace him quickly might not be an easy job.
To be fair, John McGinn's their biggest asset, isn't it? They're going to sell their best asset in the club. And I'm sure, again, Lenny's done a great job for the length of period he's been at Hibs anyway. And his recruitment, you've got to say, his recruitment has been very good at Hibs. It wouldn't surprise me if Lenny's got somebody in mind as well, if McGinn goes.
That's interesting. Who do you think it might be? Do you think he might have another pop at Scott Allen?
Do you know, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes and maybe wants to buy somebody like Christie. I think Christie's a nice footballer. Maybe he's not going to get game time at Celtic, but going to a Hibs or Aberdeen would take Christie. I read somewhere that Derek McKinnon said that his best player has left to go back to Celtic. His best player. So they rate him highly. So I don't see why Hibs, if they thought, we could maybe have a wee punt in Christie.
Derek McKinnon saying today that he has got feelers out for a couple of players. He has got, he's about to make an offer on 2 players. I'm just wondering if maybe, having said that comment, he's telegraphing something about making an approach to Celtic for Christie.
Well, I think after watching Aberdeen on Sunday, Aberdeen need players badly, because without being disrespectful to the guy up front, was it Storer? I just do not see Aberdeen doing anything with the big guy up front. They need players. They've lost their talisman with Adam Rooney, so they need players in.
Cosgrove.
They need players in badly.
That's interesting. Then Rangers against Maribor. Maribor have broken a heart or two when it comes to Scottish football over the years. This isn't an easy one for Rangers, is it?
I don't think there's any easy games in Europe. I mean, Celtic were drawn against teams that you hadn't heard of, and Gordon Strachan's first game as a Celtic manager, They could beat 5-0 with a team that we'd never heard of. So, for me, there's no easy games in Europe. So,
how do you see Rangers at home to Maribor? Bearing in mind that Barisic is cup tied during the qualifiers. If they get through to the group stages, then he's reinstated, and they can use him. And I can see him being an asset there. But he's pretty much... he is out of it in terms of the qualifiers. How do you see this one against Maribor?
Well, I've never seen Maribor playing, but you can only go with what I've seen with Rangers. Watched them on Sunday, and I thought they did excellent. So he must be happy with the performance, and I think if they take that performance into the game and the European game, then they should be okay.
Now, you used the fitness levels about how they looked a lot fitter, and I think that stands out for everybody.
Yes.
I'll tell you one of the things I noticed as well, and that was how quickly, when a man got the ball, there was 3 Rangers players round that man. One taking him on directly, one blocking off the avenue, and one kind of just to the side for if they wanted to release it, which meant you had to go back the way or try and run past the 3 of them. And I was quite impressed by the way that they shaped up when it came to controlling the zones when the player had the ball.
I think Stephen G's got a way of playing. Him and Gary McAllister, they were football players. So I think if you press higher up the park and you win the ball, you've got a better chance of scoring. We all know that. And the way Rangers play, they want to hunt in packs, and their fitness levels for me was excellent. As is, when Brendan Rodgers came, there's a wee irony here, because Brendan Rodgers, the one thing he thrives on is his players with their fitness. Now, I was at the Celtic v Standard Liège game, and the fitness levels at Celtic was frightening. It was control, pass, move, and that was about Steven Gerrard done up at Aberdeen.
Yeah.
So I think, is that the Liverpool connection coming the way they play football? They play at a high tempo, high up the park, press the ball and try and win it in their third of the park. So it's similar.
Just looking back over the weekend fixtures, was there anybody that stood out for you again, Jerry, in terms of the Premiership? Any team out with the ones we've spoken about? What did you make of Hearts at Hamilton Accies, for example?
Well, that was definitely, the result surprised me, because I think Hamilton are generally a gritty wee team that dig out draws here and there, which kept them in the league. Especially at home, but they've changed their pitch. And they went a goal up, of course. And they've changed their pitch, haven't they? They've got a new pitch now. So the pitch probably played a big part in what Hamilton did last season. If it's a better pitch, I haven't seen it. If it's a better pitch this season, it might not suit them, because
it certainly looked like a better pitch.
Well, the good teams coming now will play football on it, as did Hearts on Saturday, and whitewash them. I mean, you were at the game. You were at Celtic Livy on Saturday. Yes. What you saw of Livy, do you feel any more comfortable that they might be able to hold their own in the league, or do you think that they are going to be figuring round the bottom, just purely and simply because of budgets and maybe strength and depth? Livy will fit. If Livy finish within the bottom 4, they'll, I don't know whereabouts, but they'll be in the bottom 4, that's for sure. But the worrying thing for Celtic was that Celtic were cruising. Celtic could have been 5 or 6 goals up. They were 3 up, and they lost a goal in the last kick of the ball. Now, if that's a European game, their goals could do you in. So that's what worries me. I was saying to you earlier, Bill, that's what I'm worried about with the Celtic defenders, that if they make the same mistakes against better opposition, they'll be punished. One of the teams that we were talking about last night, and that we were kind of in no man's land with them, Jerry, and I'd be interested to see what you think about this. Everybody is absolutely in agreement how good a manager Tommy Wright is and what a great job he's done at St Johnstone. But you know yourself, sometimes there's a time where you think you've gone as far as you can possibly go. Murdo and Hugh were of the opinion that we might be approaching that time for Tommy Wright at St Johnstone. Neither of them particularly impressed by the display at the weekend. I would change it a wee bit and say that I think the time maybe have come, depending on how the season pans out, for Derek McInnes. Because if you think it... That's an interesting one, because somebody last night actually tweeted us, because somebody sent in a question saying, who do you think the first manager to bite the dust will be? And somebody very quickly said, Derek McInnes. And you were just saying a similar thing. If you could tell us why you think the reason I'm saying that is, Bill, that I look at the players that Derek McInnes had on show on Sunday. That wasn't Aberdeen. Aberdeen were... They were on their knees playing 10 men who looked stronger and fitter than them. Aberdeen normally have good players. On Sunday, I watched the game and I'm thinking, Niall McGinn didn't go by MD. I'm watching Gary Mackay-Steven failed to go by MD. The midfield players, the young boy to come on, Anderson, looked to only player as if MD could score, it was going to be him. I just was so disappointed in Aberdeen. And then I thought, OK, if Aberdeen achieve what they've achieved for the past 4 years, does Derek McInnes stay there? Because he'll be stale, he can't get fresh blood in. They've got a budget on terms of a ceiling on wages up there. He can't attract players that he maybe want to attract. So there comes a time when Derek McInnes must think, I can't go any further with this team. I've came to 4 years in a row, I've been second to Celtic, we've been beating cup finals. I can't get the players I want in because the money is not there. So I would maybe see Derek McInnes maybe moving.
Does Derek McInnes now look back at the offer from Rangers and think, should have gone?
No, I don't. No chance. Because I think at the time when Derek McInnes, he must have thought that the club wasn't getting run properly. It's only now that they brought Steven Gerrard in that maybe things have changed. But how many directors have changed for Derek McInnes got offered the job at Rangers?
Well, there's two main ones have gone.
And the chairman's gone as well?
No, the chairman's still there.
Was John Gilligan not the chairman?
No, Dave King's always been the chairman. And
managing director then? What was John Gilligan?
No, John was just the director, as was Paul Murray. Was it Stuart Robertson?
Stuart Robertson.
He's the managing director, as far as I'm aware, and Dave King chairman. I think John, well, I know John was a director, but it was just a director, and the same with Paul Murray. But
Bill, I think if a club come for you as a manager, and the strongest part of your bargaining power is when you're negotiating as a manager, and you've got to get assurances of them. Is there money available? Can I bring players that I want in? I think all the things that Derek McInnes would have weighed up, he knew he wouldn't get. That's why the club is unstable. Probably that's why he never took the job. I don't think he would look back and say I should have.
Yeah, no. Steven Gerrard has got those things, obviously.
He's probably got the assurances.
And is that purely because of the reputation of Steven Gerrard against Derek McInnes?
I've no doubt whatsoever that Steven Gerrard would be a bigger pull than Derek. I love Derek McInnes as a manager. I think he's done great. But I think Dave King sitting talking to Steven Gerrard or Derek McInnes and giving assurances, he'd want to give the assurances to
Steven Gerrard
because of his knowledge, who knows where he's been. And it's proved because he brought 3 players for Liverpool. Very
early days, Jerry, but what's your initial reaction to Gerrard managerially?
I think he's got them fit. The only thing I would say I didn't like about Steven Gerrard was the comments where I think you've got to have a bit of civility in football, where if you do well, you don't need to tell people you've done well. I think the fact that he told the media that how far apart Aberdeen were, and he kind of, I thought he'd a go at Aberdeen by saying that they weren't as good as they. You don't do that. For me, you don't do that. I think somebody should be taking them aside and saying, listen.
So it was more the diplomacy thing?
Well, I think you've got to be, because it's a long road. I mean, there might come a point where Aberdeen might have to go to Ibrox and Rangers might have to beat them to whatever, and Aberdeen turn them over. So I think Derek McInnes will savour that one if Aberdeen go and turn them over.
One of the ones we were talking about last night, because we're fairly interested to see how this might turn out this season, because they haven't brought a lot of players in, and that was Kelly, because obviously Kelly, they had a great revival under Stevie Clark. They kind of tailed off a wee bit towards the end of the season. I'm just wondering how you think Kelly are going to fare this season.
I think they'll do very well. Plus the fact their pitch doesn't help a lot of other teams. It helps Kilmarnock, but it doesn't.
I've got to be honest with you, I watched the games, and when I watched the Kelly game, it's hellish.
Shocking.
It really is hellish.
Well, that's my opinion as well. I don't agree with the pitch, but that'll help Kilmarnock. It might not help other teams. So it's when they play the Old Firm that you need to see if they can go and replicate what they did last season to Celtic and Rangers.
I was talking yesterday to Murdo and to Hugh, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I'm a bit like you are with Lawrence Shankland about the boy Jordan Jones. I think it's going to be difficult for Kelly to hang on to him, and I could see him possibly going before the window closes in Scotland. He played fantastically well at the weekend, and a couple of dreams. The one that hit the bar, what a cracking effort that was. That's
another player you talk about that's playing Scottish football, that's on your doorstep, So if Rangers know about Barasic, surely they know about Jordan Jones. They know his background, and he's there. And the boy looks a player. I just think if you go and recruit people that play in Scottish football, if they're good enough, Jordan Jones is certainly good enough, and Lawrence Shankland is certainly, in my opinion, good enough to go and play in the Rangers team.
Well, that's interesting. We'll see how it all pans out. Anything particularly that's caught your eye that you want to have a wee 2 minutes about before we wrap things up?
No, really. Just what I do on a Saturday, I'll just pick and choose a game. I'll probably go to a lower league game this weekend. And I'd just like to go and see what Scottish football has got to offer.
What's your thoughts very quickly on Dundee United, who have got off to a horror start, and there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on Dundee United this season?
Well, the stories I'm getting back is that all is not well at Dundee United, and that could maybe...
That's the stories I'm getting back. But then you've got the Mike Martin coming out before the season kicks off, saying that Shaba Laszlo's got his full support. And we've heard that from chairman before, and it's been the kiss of death. But coming out and saying he's going to give him a proper amount of time to try and, head them back up into the Premiership. Now, getting off to a start like that, I thought it was an ill-timed thing to say anyway, I've got to be honest with you. But getting off to a start like that, trust me, if they go down again this weekend, I'm not got the fixtures in front of me, but if they go down this weekend again, it's going to be very difficult for the chairman to keep to that line. I
just think they've had a poor League Cup section in terms of results. And then you would think, OK, well, it's a blip, so they'll probably win their first league game, which they didn't. And I think it goes back to the fact that I'm hearing horror stories about what's happening up there. So I think all is not well at Tannadice, and you talk about managerial casualties, maybe look no further than Dundee United this season.
Well,
for the first one.
I know one manager that's been approached by Dundee United, and I think had he said yes, then it would have been a different kettle of fish starting the season. I really do. I won't name him, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But he wasn't offered the job, but he was sounded out to say if he was offered the job, would he be interested in the job? And he said categorically no, and he said categorically no for the same reason that you highlighted with Derek McInnes, and was highlighted at the time. He allegedly felt that Rangers weren't in great situation in terms of organisation, and this particular manager felt exactly the same about Dundee United. He just felt there was too many things wrong, and they didn't have the solutions to put them right.
I think he's bang on. He's absolutely 100% correct, and I thought United would win the league this year. I really did, but after watching the League Cup results and watching Saturday's result, I doubt very much, unless they change the manager.
All right, mate, you'll be back with us on Thursday this week because Davy McKinnon is away on his holidays, and I'll be back with you tomorrow with Ali Graham. Let's hear it for the girls coming up next on Rock Sport. Thanks for your company tonight. See you tomorrow at 6.
Love music, live sport. Talking football with Bill Young and Gerry Collins on RockSport Radio.